Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me all right? Sounds all right? Okay. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the round of intros. We're going to be talking about AI and how it kind of affects maybe L1 and L2 go-to-market strategies. So 30 seconds or less intros from everyone here, please.
Cool. Hello. Hey, my name is Josh. I work at Optimism Foundation. At Optimism, we're solely focused on scaling Ethereum. Years ago, we focused on OP mainnet. Really what we do now is we lay down the OP stack. And then we encourage other chains such as Base to build on top of it. Last year, we put a pretty big effort into the AI/ML strategy. Kind of shifted gears a little bit this year as we're much more of an infrastructure team. But I can talk you guys through what we did last year. That just kind of trickled into a lot of the work that's happening this year.
Nice to see everyone. My name is Luca. I'm on the Base team, obviously focusing on AI, growing the AI ecosystem on Base. Base is an L2 built on top of Ethereum, along with our partners from OP, built on the OP stack. Base is also more than chain. We have a suite of developer tools, really just trying to make the all-around experience of building on chain as easy and seamless as possible.
I'm Chase from the Offchain Labs team. We're the builders of the Arbitrum tech stack. So that's Arbitrum 1, the L2 home of DeFi, and the Arbitrum Orbit stack, which is the open source L2, L3 SDK. I lead AI and infrastructure partnerships. Last year, we released Stylus, which is a co-equal WASM virtual machine available to all developers on all Arbitrum chains. So maximizing efficiency in terms of computation and memory.
Thank you. Hey, folks, I'm Jared. I lead our founder success and DevRel teams at Near. Near's a layer one, solely focused and purpose-built for AI. We do a lot of developer programs and acceleration programs for founders. So excited about the conversation today.
Hey, guys, I'm Clean, part of the squad at the Solana Foundation. I do growth stuff. Relevant to this conversation, I lead our efforts in AI. Our goal broadly is to have Solana be the internet's capital markets. And I think that pretty soon, most of the participants in that market won't be humans.
Well, we have a pretty well-rounded group of folks here. Actually, I don't think I realized that. That's awesome. I'll start with Colleen down here since you're head of AI. Yeah, I mean, top 4 networks, I would say. Anyway, yeah, so Colleen, since you're already kind of focused on AI, you're the head of AI over at Solana. Can you kind of talk about some of the use cases that you all are interested in seeing happen or maybe that are already kind of growing? And then I'll allow whoever else would like to jump in as well after that.
Yeah, sure thing. So probably the one-liner I would give for the vision that we're trying to help create is for Solana to help agents create wealth. I think at some level, blockchains are fundamentally financial technologies. And I think we're sort of seeing an evolution with agents where, what are the sort of critical resources they need? The first one's obviously compute. And you're seeing that sort of manifest in the form of like increasing usage of test time compute and these sort of reasoning models. I think they'll increasingly also need better memory, essentially, whether that's longer context window, RAG, access to real-time data, et cetera. A bunch of people working on that. I think the next step change function will be giving them access to money. And arguably, I think there's no better way for agents to access money than Solana. So that's sort of the very long-term vision that we're shooting for. I think the way to get there is there's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen. First, the sort of L1 needs to scale because agents will probably be able to do a lot more than humans can. There's also done a bunch of tooling for agents to be able to interact with various applications on the network. I think there's also just like a bunch of infrastructure that is lacking in sort of crypto AI intersection in general, stuff like evals. Like there's like no objective way to determine how trustworthy or capable agents are today, aside from you sort of gauge how funny you find their shit posts on Twitter. And so I think we can do much better. So that's a bunch of the stuff we're working on. But yeah, that's the vision. And I think it's mostly a question of when we get there. I think it's like a foregone conclusion that we will over some time horizon.
Yeah, I could jump in next. In terms of how Base is thinking about it, I think I mentioned this earlier, but really we want to make it like one, just as easy as possible for AI developers to do anything on chain. So, for example, like giving AI agents a wallet, I think it's like abundantly clear that if we're going to bring 1 billion people on chain, that all these people will have 10 plus agents transacting for them, taking a bunch of actions on chain. Blockchain is going to be the medium in which agents communicate. And we're developing a bunch of tools around that. One, obviously, Base's blockchain. We're scaling, which came out with flash blocks yesterday, 200 millisecond block times. Another really exciting thing that we just came out with is sub accounts. So in terms of like giving every agent a wallet, what we've seen is a lot of people just basically programmatically creating EOAs with sub accounts and with Smart Wallet. Basically, you can now have a unified wallet experience for like your agents. So unified under one kind of like global account, which is like your main Smart Wallet. And then you could kind of give each agent under this one account their own wallet with certain sets of permissions and whatnot, and kind of a hierarchical structure. So this just came out yesterday. It's on testnet. It's really exciting. So that's on like the dev tooling side. I think another thing is in terms of like AI bringing new folks into crypto. I think we've seen the rise of these kind of like vibe coders, people who don't have a lot of coding experience, who want to build on-chain applications. And obviously crypto has been like fairly like, difficult to use. And with some of our things like on-chain kit, we can now plug this into LLMs to enable vibe coders to bring on-chain components really simply into their products. So we're going to see, again, like products across all verticals outside of just like AI, like have AI components. So yeah, we just want to make it really, really simple, easy to do that. And yeah.
So at Optimism, when we started spelling out the AI strategy last year, was like just breaking down like overarching into 3 buckets were the way that we cut up use cases. So first, what does that actually mean on the compute side? No, we can't really run compute on chain. What portions of that could actually go on chain? So there was a lot of emphasis on proof of machinehood and TEE efforts. So there was a team actually that AltLayer helped us bring on called Automata, who does TEE work. Swan Chain's then a GPU team. Talking to the Hyperbolic team for a bit as well about GPUs and accessing GPU marketplaces. So that's kind of on the closest that we've gotten on the compute side. On the data side, we've had teams kind of approach us from every angle of potentially putting data on chain. I think one of the more exciting pieces were some teams out of New York that are researchers who are trying to put like federal agency data on chain. We had some stuff in California happen with, I forgot, it wasn't actually on the OP stack. I forgot what team they did it on, but there was like DMV work that was putting data on chain. So not really a lot of effort that's happening there. And then obviously the bulk of it's on the app layer side in terms of use. Agentic work in general, I think we all know is happening. The big thing for us at Optimism now is like, we're running for things like 40% of L2 transactions, like $20 billion in TVL, et cetera, and tens of millions of transactions daily. But that's still on like a kind of cross chain by chain basis. And so the next big step for us is superchain interop. And so I would say the big space that we think is going to be pretty exciting, not just for humans, but also agents, like in the near term, is when we actually have full native interop going from chain to chain starting later this year. And in that case, like basically any time, so right now we're running at the hackathon. We're never at any hackathon, so it's great that the team's here. No offense to the DevRel team on my side, but we're showing up, which is great. And you have a ton of different use cases that are happening in terms of cross-chain swaps, arbing, borrowing, lending, et cetera. And basically then we added like a subset to that where anyone can also apply an agent to it. And so those are all basically agentic use cases of actually cross-chain swaps, cross-chain arbs, whether you're a human or not. And so we're starting to see quite a bit of attraction in that space. And I think like cross-chain DeFi will be quite huge on the superchain in the near term.
Broadly speaking, our goal is to lower the barrier to entry for sophisticated DeFi strategies. I'll call a spade and say Arbitrum doesn't have the meme coin activity that Solana has or all the retail user base, but what it does have is sophisticated DeFi players running just about every DeFi strategy in the book that you can. There's over 15 protocols with greater than 50 million TVL, more stablecoin, greater stablecoin market cap than any L2. But these strategies are obviously very difficult for the lay person to access. No new crypto user is coming into DeFi and running SexDex ARB strategies. And then also, when you have these newer retail users, there's strategies that you can run that you can't run in size that might be interesting for someone with slightly less capital. So lowering the barrier to entry to those through sophisticated multi-step agentic DeFi activity is sort of what we're looking for going forward.
Yeah, I'll be super brief. I think just to complement what everyone has shared, we've taken a bit of a different angle, similar to Arbitrum, right? I think for us, we recognize the highest leverage and highest value things we could provide are more of a actually enterprise B2B use cases, particularly around privacy and just leveraging fundamental blockchain primitives, right? While DeFi and agents that can transact on chain are obviously really, really exciting, primitive and new technology. We found the larger TAM and larger opportunity space, particularly on the enterprise side. A lot has to be true for that. And so the things that we've launched have been more fundamental infrastructure. We just launched earlier this week a protocol called AITP, or a AI communication protocol for agents to communicate with other agents. Really, really important if you're trying to do multi-agent orchestration at scale. So that's the opportunity space we focused on. Obviously, I think each of us are tackling things from a different angle. So complementing kind of what folks have already shared.
So to some extent, pretty much every team up here have pivoted in some way, or not pivoted, but leaned into AI in some way, all the way to pivoting, what I would kind of call near, because now you all are calling yourself the blockchain for AI. And I would say on the least amount of discussions, maybe I'm in a bubble, but Arbitrum, maybe I don't see as much as maybe on the very other end, but obviously you are doing a lot. But like, you know, depending on like how far each of you have like leaned into that, like this is obviously a change from maybe like a year ago in terms of strategy. How has the community of developers and existing like ecosystem, how have they, I would say, responded to this? Has it been positive, negative? Like, yeah, just kind of curious to hear everyone's, response.
Well, yeah, absolutely. On the near front, I think quickly for Optimism, so last year we actually did put a pretty kind of concerted effort behind the strategy. So we actually ran a campaign called Superfest, which is a DeFi campaign that we ran that, to be honest, it was quite a bit of work for any user to get involved with it. So we tried to slap an NLP interface on top of that, which is like, we did that in tandem with a team called Agent Coin kind of on the side. And then we worked with another team called Olas, who built Optimus, which was an agent that would basically run all these swaps for us. So we started doing kind of like agentic work mid-year last year. But in full transparency, we kind of pulled back a bit just because the focus for the team was much more on like core infrastructure, as I alluded to earlier with the super chain. And since then, if I'm being honest, it's been just great watching Base, because obviously we all know how Virtuals is done across the ecosystem. So on the Optimism side, it's still happening, maybe a little bit more even like Arbitrum, where it's part of the stack, but it's a little less at the forefront. Well, I think we're all kind of quite happy to see Ilya and Near team vocalize and evangelizing as much as they are.
Yeah, maybe just to answer that, right? I mean, to be fully transparent, it was a pivot. It was a pretty big pivot, right? We went from what we previously called our blockchain operating system, which was very similar to what you now know as Farcaster frames or decentralized front ends, to really being truly AI native. Part of that is kind of leading into mimetic founders that exist in this space and leveraging Ilya's background. The other part of it is seeing how we could drive the most value and create the most value in a highly competitive space, right? And to answer your question directly on how did the ecosystem respond to that, it was pretty split. Right. The reality is there are a lot of folks that didn't come to the Near ecosystem for AI. And so trying to cultivate a developer ecosystem with very different personas, right? We're going to go to NVIDIA GTC here in a couple of weeks in San Francisco. That's a complete opposite developer persona that's here in East Denver, right? Not in a bad way. It's just a very different set and different style of engagement. And so for us, we've had to really expand the surface area of developer tooling, expand the surface area of what our narrative means, how we show up. And so it's been I would say, complete 180 in terms of what has had to take place internally to even kind of live up to quote unquote the claims.
I'll jump in just because it'll be interesting to see the juxtaposition of our two answers. From the Solana side, actually, there's almost like zero change in like the core vision or thesis. It's simply a change in like who we think the actual user is. And actually, it's funny. I mean, so I've been part of the Solana team for 4 years now. And even when I first joined, I had a conversation with Toli around like, look, I think machines will be the primary users of this thing over some time horizon. And arguably that's true today. The machines are just not very sophisticated. They're trading bots. and the expectation is just that like it'll be much more the machines will be much more intelligent. So in some ways, actually, it's like zero change to sort of fundamentally what we're trying to do. There have been some tweaks, like if you think about machines as your user base, like what does that mean you have to shift? So this is where a lot of like agent tooling stuff, working on evals comes in. But otherwise, actually, and there's like some more subtle things, like how do you make everything that you do now, you don't think about the human as the first class user, you actually think about the machine. And that's a little bit of a mindset shift that we've had. But actually, fundamentally, there's almost no change. And one thing I'll say, to me, I think saying you're an AI company today is sort of like saying you're an internet company in like 2000. It's like everyone's doing it. It's like almost meaningless, and it'll just be part of what everyone does all the time.
Yeah, actually, like we have like a very like similar. Like I don't think things have like similar to Solana. Like I don't think things have really like changed for base necessarily. Like yes, like we're leaning in, like we're supporting. It's just like really like a new vertical. Like in terms of like fundamentally what we're building, what we're scaling, like everything is still the same. Like we still need to scale super aggressively. We still need to build really good developer tools. We still need to enable like world-class UX on chain. I would say there are some like tweaks in terms of again, like with machines as kind of like first-class citizens on chain. But all things overlap still, right? Like if agents are transacting and settling on chain, things like international, like local stable coins are still like really important. And that's something we're leaning into anyway, but have become like even more important with, again, like more and more agents transacting on chain. I think also like the other thing is more leaning into, again, making it easy to both develop and use on-chain tools and applications is probably a new something like we're leaning into much more heavily. But yeah, again, like nothing has really fundamentally changed in terms of like where our like developer resources and engineering resources are going. They're still going to making base faster, cheaper, more scalable, etc.
Concur with both of you guys that not much is changing, enabling developers with more tools. I mentioned Stylus earlier, which adds increased complexity on computational use cases. People are discussing building neural networks inside of a smart contract, which is really interesting. Developer and community sentiment has actually been very high. We've been hosting Twitter Spaces every other week with Def AI builders, just doing a roundtable. They've gotten the best engagement of any other Twitter Spaces we've done. We have a builders community channel. I think some of the people in this room are in that. And yeah, it's really about enabling developers with tools. We're also building an agent kit, or a number of teams are coming together to build it. The goal is to maximize the efficiency with which you can build production-ready agents.
Wait, so is Def AI the canonical pronunciation? I wondered.
We all hate it, but I like.
Okay, awesome. So I have a few more questions. Let me see which one I ask next. Yeah, I guess one thing is for me, it's always around developer adoption and just developers coming into the space. And I feel like right now with agents and some of these frameworks that kind of overlap in the traditional like software world, we're kind of having the potential, and we're already actually seeing some new devs come in that might not have cared about building on chain. So how do you feel that this more adoption of AI that we're seeing in the crypto space might affect your number of developers coming into your ecosystems? Like, will it change that or no? Or
I mean, a lot of people did listen to Jason Calacanis, and they pivoted to AI in 2022. So we are competing with them from a developer standpoint. That being said, with the AI tools that exist today, the developers that do come in can be much more productive. So I think that it actually nets out, and we'll start to see more developers move into the crypto space as honestly the price of Bitcoin rises, because that's how it usually works, for better or for worse.
I think just to be brief, right, if you think about what AI has done, is it's compounded the amount of software that exists in the world minute by minute, second by second. And so for us, we use that as kind of the grounding thesis of the reality is, from a developer standpoint, rarely would somebody build it completely verticalized on Near. How do we actually enable a more modular stack that actually enables people to essentially get what they need right when they need it, right? So more of focused on modularity as the key in the AI age that can really complement someone's existing tech stack.
Yeah, and speaking to like new developers, again, I think I mentioned this before, but like we do not want them to be spending a ton of time and resources thinking about like what it means to build on-chain, right? Like if on-chain enables them to have a better product, build new features, make something that's just like net better all around that people want to use, amazing. We want them to focus on, if they're AI developers, whatever they are, super heavily there, and for all the on-chain stuff to be seamless, be taken care of, very easy to integrate. I think a lot of new developers who might have been interested before might have been kind of like scared away by building on-chain because it was difficult. And now we're just making it, again, really focused on making it really easy, especially as we see more and more teams, which has been like, honestly, like very energizing, be like super on the ball and like super laser focused on like really what their product is, as opposed to just being like something like specifically on chain and then using on chain to make that product 10 times better.
Yeah, I guess not to hammer home on the super chain piece, but I really think our team just being so core to the infrastructure as a whole, when we're thinking of developers, there is quite a bit of effort that we're putting just towards developers that would want to build. Again, as I even said at the hackathon, that's what the main focus is on. Like, how do you do multi-chain activity? And so I think still for us, like, developers will come into this space more so on the AI front, maybe in the next like 6 to 12 months, once we kind of get that live. And there's much clearer underlying infrastructure that we can have them build on top of while we're building that out.
I would maybe draw a distinction between people building stuff in crypto and an increasing number of folks using crypto to solve certain problems. Like the latter bucket, I would expect a ton more to happen. In the first bucket, I actually think it's sort of interesting. Like, you do have talent competition. So you have talented people that could be building some in sort of net new things in crypto, or they could be doing other things, and that competition has gone up. I also think that the software engineering and the sort of cost to produce software has gone down substantially, probably goes to like close to zero. I actually think that crypto is probably one of the areas in which you're probably the most scared to just fully trust Cursor to like autocomplete your smart contract or program, because there's money at stake. So actually, I would expect that like the like rate of progress that AI, the improvement that applies to crypto to actually be slower than to most software development. So it's non-zero, but it's like you have to be really, really careful if you're building sort of net new stuff on chain, because it's real money. And people, as we saw with Bybit, like if there is a gap, people will exploit it.
So, you mentioned that because every company is now an AI company, essentially, you feel like you don't have to differentiate yourself in the sense of maybe go to market or framing your, a strategy around how you publicly talk about your company and your product. But curious, like, I know Near how maybe you might be doing this, but I'd still love to hear your answer as well. Like, how do you differentiate yourself then for developers interested in AI? Like in terms of what type of marketing, what type of strategy in terms of like awareness that you all might change now versus maybe 2 years ago, and the landscape today?
Go ahead.
From our perspective, I don't know if marketing has changed that much. Like, my expectation is that the machines will be probably more rational than humans in the way they make decisions on what to do. So they're just going to do the thing that is cheap, fast, and assuming that their reward function is something tied to making money or like doing, some productive thing for humans, they'll just do that wherever, they can maximize that objective function. Our goal is simply to make Solana the place where your objective function maximization is like best achieved. And so there's a few input metrics to that. I think one is like, you want it to be the place that is like the most scalable and cheap, et cetera, et cetera. And then you also want it to be the place where there's like the most amount of meaningful economic activity for the agent to engage with and sort of generate wealth from. So we focus on those inputs, and then we expect the machines will pick.
I really respect that view. I think, transparently, one of the biggest challenges we faced is when your founder was one of the core contributors to the Transformer architecture, there's a certain level of expectation in terms of what would be visible to developers, both from a research standpoint, both from a product standpoint, and just developer tooling. And so we have had to, I would say, dramatically upskill internally to reach that standard. And I would say still working to reach that standard. And that's something that we're ultimately striving for. I think we balance the world where I would say, have a majority of our developer base is actually Web 2 native than it is crypto native. And so the amount of tutorials, quick starts, and what you would just consider best-in-class DevRel that needs to exist for us is quite a large surface area. And so the tension we're battling with is how do we bring along both of these audiences, right, in a really compelling way. And so it's an amazing opportunity for us that we really tried to double down. But it's something that we're constantly working through and figuring out how to best suit both audiences to ultimately create the most value.
One change we've made relatively recently is developing more at the application layer, or contributing more, I should say. So we're all users of the chain, of course. We run DeFi strategies ourselves and our PAs, or we have friends that do. So one of the things that AI has enabled us to do is to say, hey, here's the strategy that I've been running in my PA. You should go and try and figure it out and see if you can open source it, or create an agent that can run that on behalf of other users, and maybe you can get $10 million in assets under custody for said agent. So that's something that we've started doing more recently, where we've seen just about every builder come through the door that's building on Arbitrum, and we have ideas at the application layer, but typically we've been focused on the infrastructure level. Now it's easy enough to build these agents that we can sort of give developers an idea and let them run with it.
Yeah, on terms of how we could differentiate ourselves. It's okay, yes, on the developer experience, we're scaling, we're building tools to make it really easy to build on chain. We're making it really easy to give agents wallets. But beyond that, I think especially in all of our positions on BD growth side, I think what a lot of teams come to us for is help with distribution. So one, our team is just generally hands-on. And I think this is something that's phenomenal about the base ecosystem is everyone is very culturally aligned to growing the pie, growing the ecosystem, being very aligned. So everyone wants to help each other, which obviously makes my job really easy. Where if someone is launching an agent that's doing DeFi strategies, then Morpho, Moonwell, Aerodrome, etc., are super happy to talk to them, set up integrations, and then you kind of have network effects from there. We're also super fortunate to be part of the Coinbase family. And Base and Jesse is now overseeing the product direction for Coinbase Wallet. And with this kind of rebrand, it's going to be open source, allow third parties to contribute. And a big part of the strategy is going to be native AI integrations. So whether open source teams contributing an LLMs that can integrate directly in wallets, DeFi applications, etc., immediately have distribution to hundreds of thousands of users, hopefully millions of users soon. So that's really impactful. And I guess on the non-dev technical side, kind of what Base is doing to think about, especially since we don't have a token, we need to double down on what is very important to teams, since we can't incentivize them proactively, and we lean on OP and the super chain for retroactive good funding.
Yeah, can I ask a question? What does it mean to have an LLM integrated in a wallet? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, of course. So basically, how Coinbase Wallet is going to be built out is this on-chain super app. So there will be I think a super simple example is there will be a messaging component built into Wallet. So let's say you want to integrate some open source bot. Maybe it's just a knowledge bot, I want to learn more about crypto. I think a really interesting thing that I was at a DeepIn day yesterday and saw some awesome demos about this is where in this wallet experience, you can now access basically all your on-chain experiences through an LLM. So that could be if you have demo, and again, Coinbase Wallet is like multi-chain, but like what would be amazing is like, let's say you have a demo device and you're also like subscribed to Helium, and you're doing some other stuff in DPIN, and you also like have like all these like on-chain DeFi strategies going on, where you could actively manage that all through natural language in the wallet interface directly. So I think that is potentially really powerful. What LLMs are going to power those bots, again, like these are open to third parties. So like if you're just like an open source LLM provider, then that's the type of distribution you could get. If you're doing something more specific, you could have like more specific kind of like messaging features, and build more integrations into Wallet. There'll also be things like Warpcast and Frames V2, et cetera, that are coming out.
That's kind of like what we were saying, like what I mentioned, the super fast, where we basically put like an NLP interface on top of a bunch of like DeFi campaigns. Actually, Circle did something like this last year too. Kylie Wang, before she left the team, built out something that was basically just an NLP interface to help with USD swaps from one chain to another. So I think again, fairly nascent, but.
Is it part of to ask the question? I wonder about this. Like a lot of the agent stuff I see getting built is like, basically, like the way I would put it is, instead of me clicking buttons to do something, I type text. And so I'm like, okay, like maybe typing text is better UX. Maybe it's not. Like I would argue that for a lot of consumer applications, especially, people are lazy and like want decisions made for them. And like actually typing is like more work. It's like a more difficult, like I have to put more thought into like, what am I saying? And so this is like just a kind of open sort of a shower thought kind of thing that I had, that was where the question was coming from.
I totally agree. I think before people start using natural language to deal with their money, they're going to have to start using natural language to book a restaurant reservation. And we're just at the beginning of that.
Well, I would say like I kind of viewed it as a spectrum at Optimism. Like one side, you are manually doing like, again, super fast campaign, 60 campaigns. I'm a user, I'm going through this. The NLP was like a middle ground in between. I think the most relevant is a fully automated version of it. So Olas runs something called Pearl. They're built on top of Optimism as well. They have a fully autonomous agent that's basically running DeFi strategies for you all the time. So in that case, like I'm not thinking about anything as a user. I'm just investing my capital. It's already running campaigns for me. It's more about the DeFi teams I can actually plug into the Pearl itself.
Yeah, last thought on that is like, I actually like very much agree. Like if I'm just like trying to like swap something, right? Like I just want to click like 3 buttons and make a swap real quick. Especially like if you're talking about like through a wallet interface. I think something that like will be really interesting is like more complex on-chain actions that require like me to press a bunch of buttons across like a bunch of different like UIs. So like if I was like, let me like sweep my wallet for like all balances less than $5 across all chains and like convert it to like, I don't know, like USDC on base or whatever. Like that's like super powerful. That's like a lot of times like I'm not even gonna spend the time to do that because it's a massive pain in the butt. But like those kind of integrations I think are really powerful versus like if I know I'm going to do and I could get it done in 3 seconds, I'm going to choose the path of least resistance or whatever's quickest.
Yeah, like clicking a button to do one action or orchestrating a lot of actions would be better through NLP. So like last thing, because we're done on time, quickly, what are your favorite agents? I'll start with you here.
I guess one of my favorite agent rails, there's a team called Nevermind I'm a big fan of, who they're not running agents, but they're helping connect agent marketplaces by doing basically crypto rails for agents, which sounds like Base kind of started working on.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say I have a specific agent specifically. A framework is very biased here, but a big fan of the Agent Kit team. I think Lincoln, who's the PM on that, really like kicked off a lot of this stuff. A ton of these frameworks are integrated with Agent Kit, give wallets in the background. We just spun up a smart wallet API, which I think will give agents like way more capabilities. And it's just like making it super easy for, again, like these teams like Virtuals, et cetera, who are building agents and building like really interesting things to just give them a wallet.
I'd say one of my favorites is Cood AI. It actually manages most of its liquidity and it balances its liquidity pool, trying to maximize returns. Of course, I think it's up 30 or 40%, and then it's continuing to learn and run strategies on GMX's GM pools.
2 sets of agents. One at the consumer layer fascinated by voice agents, if you haven't experimented with 11 Labs or just any real-time voice-to-speech API, really, really powerful primitives that can be built. Already seeing this in customer service, kind of passing the Turing test of, do you know if you're talking to an agent or to a human? Pretty scary. On the kind of base infrastructure layer, I think what Hyperbolic is doing with agents that can manage compute environments is really interesting. There's another team called Morph Labs. They're essentially Git for compute. Really, really powerful when you think about agents that can actually manage a essentially compute environment of what might be possible there. So two that I think are pretty cool.
I'll answer this from a slightly different vantage point as like me personally. Two. So one is Truth Terminal. For those of you who don't know, like the sort of, as far as I know, like first agent millionaire, made a bunch of money on Bitcoin and then Goat and Fartcoin. Actually, that wealth is on Solana. And it also just like a really good shit poster. Like it consistently, I like read its tweets and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. It's also first, so it like has that going for it. And then on a sort of more serious note, like deep research to me, depending on, there's a Google version or because the AI world just like loves naming stuff really well. OpenAI's version. I think that's like one of the first, like voice agents actually I think is a use case that is like very real. But deep research actually is like a really excellent scoped agent use case that I think like the returns to research time coming down from something like this are going to be staggering in the coming like months, years, decades.
So a takeaway is that we don't have a lot of agents that we all like all that much yet. So we have a lot of potential.
I love deep research. I'll just say that.
Okay, got it. So yeah, for me, I like Truth Terminal, but I also saw this agent that is basically has made $100 million in real estate transactions, or maybe leads for a real estate agency in Portugal, which I thought was really interesting. It's not crypto, but it's actual something that's provided a lot of value, and it's real, and it exists in this world today, and it's tangible, and it's not theoretical. Anyway, so I admire all the work that all 5 of you have done and are doing. So I appreciate your time today, and it's been an honor to be up here with you. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.